What's going on, everyone? Travis Brown here with the Eagle. Over there to my left, it might be right on yours. I don't know. Up here on my level, that's Robert Cessna, the Eagle as well.
Same plane, same plane.
Yeah. Our common denominator, though, below us, that's Andrew Monaco, voice of the Aggies. We're so grateful to have him here on getting to just Zoom hang out. This is what we do nowadays. Us youths, like the three of us, we Zoom hang out, and that's how we socialize with our friends during a global pandemic. So we're just a couple of buds hanging out here talking some Aggie sports. Andrew, how's it going? How's your family? How's everybody doing during this pandemic?
Everybody is well, thankfully. My daughter is with me. She will be a senior at Trinity, but she completed her junior year online. And my son, who is an Aggie graduate, is in Houston. Everyone is well. Thank you very much.
Trinity, wow, impressive. Yeah.
Well, and I hear that it's a special day for the Monaco family today. I'll let you give a little shout out today if you want to do that.
Yep, Gina turns 21 today. And
wow.
Yeah, so we've already had the birthday brunch. There will be a birthday dinner tonight. So that will just be part of the day, and then we'll do something this weekend. The whole family will be together this weekend. So chance to celebrate that this weekend as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's focus on you a little bit first, because I know for me, for Cease, for everyone in kind of our related industries, with no sports, things have been a little bit difficult. What's kind of been occupying your time? I know we watched the town halls with Ross Bjork, with you and Will Johnson and Mike Wright every week. What has this been looking like for you as you in your role with Texas A&M?
The pivot to social media is what happened after March 11th, March 12th, coming back from Nashville. And that was interesting because Aggies don't play on Wednesday, but the SEC tournament started on Wednesday, and we went Tuesday night, get there Wednesday. I actually had a game. I had the second game of that Wednesday on SEC radio. They use the SEC announcers, and they mix up the broadcasting teams. So the first game is being played, and then in between we hear, well, you know what, they're not going to have fans for the rest of the tournament, and we're all joking with one another. Well, what are the Kentucky fans going to do? They're going to be really ticked. They're not going to be able to come in and watch their team play. So we read the announcement from Greg Sankey. Thursday morning, we have a broadcasters meeting, all the SEC broadcasters who are there. And it's an odd meeting. It's nice to get together, but it's odd because, something's about to happen. And then team goes through shoot around at the hotel at 10, from 10 to 11. And supposed to play at 6. Buzz breaks up that at the end. He says, look, it's not in our control. Whatever happens, this and that. And it can't be more than 3 minutes later. All our phones are buzzing. I actually got it from the Alabama crew that the tournament has been called off. So we come back, we spend Thursday there, and then we come back. And John Thornton and I are joking. Like I said, I think I'm too loud. I think Buzz is going to tell me to shush at some point during our game. I said, this is going to be like doing golf. So we're thinking about what's going to happen. Then it gets totally taken away. And then we come back, like I said, the pivot to social media because there are no spring sports. So that's what we've done. As from the 12th Man Productions part of it, the Texas A&M Ventures part of it. And then the thought was, can we condense games? So right now we're running the Aggies in 60 every Friday on the Zone during Studio 12 and on our podcasts. So I don't think I've ever edited more audio tape than I have in those 2 or 3 weeks. All the basketball games and all the football games have been condensed into 60-minute broadcasts. So that's been part of it. Intro for Learfield, IMG College, the classic games that are running. And as you mentioned, Travis, to talk with Ross Bjork every week during the Aggie Town Halls has been, I think it's been great because you get to hear from the director of athletics. He does that obviously with us on Monday and then meets with the media on Tuesday. So it's great to have him out front giving updates every week.
Andrew, just I think a lot of people want to know just about you specifically. Why did you become a broadcaster? What was that path?
It was a the interest was you get caught up when you play sports. And then at a certain point, growing older, you take either, see, I always called this that growing up, there were certain broadcasters and they become a soundtrack of your life. And you realize looking back that you're always listening to them or watching them and realizing, oh, that's something interesting. And as you get older, okay, how do you get into that? And I had a teacher in high school, Robert Metzger, who used to work at NBC in the 60s. Became an English teacher and was able to make it an English class, but it was a television studio in our high school. So we learned audio, we learned how to write copy, we learned how to be in front of the camera, and we would do closed circuit broadcasts of not so much the football. It wasn't that easy to wheel the tape recorder and those big old decks that they had at the time, but we could do basketball. To me, it was really interesting to be a part of it and to have, I think the hands-on part is always intriguing. And then he had such good relationships with Pete Silverman, who was working at the time it was called Prism in Philadelphia. He would then move on to Madison Square Garden TV. Pete Silverman would come in and talk with us. A young Mike Emmerich came in and talked with us. I hate to say movers and shakers because that seems to be so cliche, but not realizing at the time when you're in 11th and 12th grade that these are some big wigs, and working with them later, and that we're working, knowing of them later, realizing, wow, what an opportunity. And I think it was that hands-on where you got the bug. So, the writing part with newspapers. And then when it came time to pick a school, Maryland had the journalism, had the broadcast journalism. And I even left that for some, because I needed money. So the stipend to be a sports editor at the Diamondback was important. But looking back, I think the writing part has helped me as a broadcaster. I have a lot of young broadcasters ask me, and I think writing is critical. I think it helps you think on your feet and use the right words. And it was that hands-on part, though, at Maryland was really important for the radio station there. And then to take myself out of where I grew up and then to go in that Baltimore, Washington area and be exposed a little bit more really helped. And it was that experience. But it was just something always intrigued me. Like I have a Zoom later on today, and I'm interested. One of the questions they say they're going to ask is, "What would you do if you weren't doing this?" And I have no idea. I've been that fortunate, that lucky to be a part of, to be fired and land on my feet and have opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities. So it's weird. It's again, it's just really, really fortunate that it's been something that I've enjoyed, been something I've been able to be a part of, whether it's been radio broadcasting, TV broadcasting. I've just been really lucky that I've had a lot of good fortune in this business.
I'm going to take a quick moment to go ahead and say anybody who's watching us both on Facebook Live and Periscope, welcome. If you have any questions, comments, anything you want to fire in, be sure to fire those in. We got the intrepid Alex Miller over on the headset over there that's monitoring that. Alex, I think we got something already. Am I incorrect?
On which one?
On Facebook.
On Face.
I'll go ahead.
Your faceless Facebook, Alex.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we got a question from Patrick. Sorry, it was taking a second for the Facebook page to reload. Here, I guess I'll start my video.
There he is.
Hey,
There he is.
hey guys, sorry about that. But hey, Andrew, good to see you, man.
Alex, good to see you, my friend.
We got a question from Patrick. How is Aggie football coming along with the lockdown? I mean, there's a lot of bases to cover, and I know that they're going to start opening up facilities here pretty soon.
June 8th is when the facilities will open. Interesting, the perspective that we have had, whether it's from Ross Bjork telling us. We did a Zoom last week with Carson Green was one of the student athletes. We were talking. It was internally with the 1922 Fund, part of the 12th Man Foundation. And I was asking Carson, when's the last spring you didn't participate? And this was the first one in a long time for him. He said that the challenge has been when it comes to weights, where to work out. Now, I believe they were all outfitted with speed bands or weight bands as well to work with those on their own. Wide receivers, obviously, with things like ladders and things. But the key was to try to, if you had something in your house, a setup or a chance to be with other players or something in a garage, that's what's really interesting. To me, it's really that those student athletes who are, they really know how to do it on their own. They have that self-propel, if you will. And I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. That's great because you have guys like that on this football team where they've missed out in the spring and they'll have to catch up in the late summer and fall camp. Is you wanted the Kellen Monds, the Jamon Osmonds, the Buddy Johnsons, the Keldrick Carpers. You wanted those experienced players to keep inundating the new players with the culture, if you will. This is how we do it. I think they got that from the recruiting visits, and they got some of that in the fourth quarter drills. That's what's kind of missing. But I think when now these younger players see, wow, Kellen's ready, Jamon's ready, these older junior seniors, the preparation is going to be there. I think it'll fall into line for them. But it's going to be the ones that are, we know that Kellen just flat out chews up time looking at video and wanting to get better that way. And I'm sure with Jamon being his roommate that, whatever they can do on their own, you're going to have that. But I think the value is going to be when they all get together June 8th. I know Carson was saying, he was talking with Dr. Schmidt. Jerry Schmidt was telling them that what to work on. The 8 hours of the virtual training that they can do has been valuable. But I think that next step is going to be when they can all be together. And June 8th, there's going to be that plan of, I believe it's going to be weight training in sessions. It's not going to be, okay, all the offense lifts now, they leave, and the defense comes in. I think it's going to be a specific number that will be doing it throughout the day. Ross Bjork was very excited, and so was Jimbo the last time we talked with him. Very excited that there is the plan that's going to come to fruition. Very much looking forward to having all the student athletes back on campus. So that's going to be that next step, and that does come June 8th for the football squad.
What is kind of your outlook? What are you hoping for this team moving forward and moving into this 2020 season? Assuming everything kind of goes off as well.
I've got high expectations for them. I had high expectations for them last year because I loved the way that they finished Jimbo's first year. And I remember during a coach's night, there was some experience going in from year one to year two, but there were few seniors. But what they did over the course of last season, and if I had to pick a game to pivot, I thought it was the win at Ole Miss. And that kind of got everything started. Like the expectations changed. I remember talking to Jimbo about this, and he embraced this, that his first season, no one expected them to beat Clemson. Great game, 2-point conversion away from tying that game, but no one expected them to win that one. The expectations changed, that there were more people expected them to beat Clemson. Not a ton, but he liked that. He liked that if you're going to get better, the expectations change, live up to those expectations. And I remember after that Clemson game, there was talk about when I say lack of leadership, I remember Jamon Osmond saying this, that didn't know how to get that sideline engaged. And to me, it wasn't a void of leadership. I don't think anybody, that first year team had so many guys who had bought into Jimbo. When you have the Otaro Lakas and you have the Tyrell Dodsons, almost these natural leaders, Donovan Wilson on the defensive end, you have Travion Williams, and those were the kind of natural leaders. They left. That's where the void was. Then you saw that leadership of Jamon, and that leadership I thought came from practice, where Jamon does every drill first. Buddy does every drill first. in that this is the way that it's supposed to be done. And Jamon told me, he goes, if anyone's going to mess up, I want it to be me. Then yell at me. Let me do it again. That came over the course of the season. And then I thought right around the Ole Miss time was when this team finally stacked defensive stops and the offense took over. And then the defense got a 3 and out and I thought you finally saw that. And then you saw that leadership emerge. That's what makes me so excited now. Oh, look, you've also traded Georgia for Vanderbilt. You've also traded Clemson for Colorado, to take nothing against the Colorados and the Fresno States and the North Texases. But the schedule is not going to be as daunting. But I think this team learned something from last year. And I like that the expectations are higher. And I like the way they grew last season. And I think it's time for them to take off because they have the upperclassmen, not just the leadership. They're very well prepared for that role. I think you had role players last year who were elevated, who weren't ready for that role. I think they're ready for it this year. I'm excited because they're also a lot deeper this year. Last year, there were so many questions, and over the course of the season, those questions were answered, but they didn't have depth at linebacker. They didn't have depth at running back. They didn't have great depth. Now they have a deep threats and some more game breakers. The secondary. I think they have way more depth. I think they were able to weather that all of last season and see some guys really, really elevate in their roles. But I think they're deeper at every spot now. And I think that's really, really exciting.
Andrew, you get to go to all these coaches' nights, and it looks like the coaches' nights are not going to make it. And I've been to the ones here, been to a couple in Houston, and see how I think that's very important for the fans, even though they just meet with Jimbo, the interaction. Everybody really circles. What do you think the effect of fans not being able in those cities to go out and talk to Jimbo for a couple hours?
Yeah, I'm with you, Cease, on that because there is so much excitement. You go through each of those, and I was able to go to all of them last year and be there, and there is that excitement. And I think Jimbo is just outstanding in that role, whether it's, the hour before, the one-on-one that he does, but just engaging. Like, he's supposed to talk for 20 to 30 minutes, and it never lasts that short because he's doing what he loves. He loves talking about his team and about his players. This is where I feel bad. It's funny. I always think about the repercussions of everything and the ripple effect. I feel bad because unless there's a way around it, the money that gets raised for all those scholarships. I mean, I love that every single one of those nights begins with scholarship recipients and all these impressive young women and young men who are going to A&M, and it's not even sports related. Like, I get blown away at what their majors are. That's where I feel like, where do you make that up? But that entire excitement, like, I love going to Austin, and as the head of that chapter says, to get behind the orange curtain, to see Jimbo in the green room at Billy Bob's, and see all the autographs and all the drawn on album covers and band logos. He's like a kid there. Or to be in Houston and how big an event that is. Even the Brazos County one, I love that one. Like, there is so much excitement. Hard to replicate that in a Zoom, hard to duplicate that with an online auction, but I certainly hope they have a way to do that, because to me, it's kind of the unofficial kickoff for football, because Jimbo has an idea of who some of the early enrollees are, and he gives you probably as honest an assessment. There's coach speak, and then there's Jimbo. He's just going to tell you that this guy looked good. We moved him here. We've got that. To me, you kind of get the juices flowing and know that, okay, now it gives you something more to look for once fall camp begins. I think they're special, and I like it, Cease, because you get to see the different Aggie fans around the state, and you realize why Saturdays are so special and why the tailgating is so special. And, each market, if you will, is proud, and they love having Jimbo come in. And I think the one in Dallas we did at Gillies, Buzz Williams was introduced at that one. So that Buzz and Jimbo at the same coaches night was something special as well.
Andrew, you mentioned those athletes and all they have to do in their majors. I went to school and my minor was basically Billy Bob's itself too. So I kind of I feel that. You mentioned both Jimbo Fisher and you mentioned Buzz Williams. You do radio shows with both of them. You do a great job on those over there at Rudy's every week. Seemingly two very different personalities. How do you balance those shows, manage those shows, and get that kind of great content out of both those different coaches who do have very similar but also different personalities?
Yeah, I pray that I can get all the commercials in because that's not easy. An hour just is not long enough. It's really not. I wish it were longer. I'm sure they don't wish it were longer. I find them both fascinating because it's not Jimbo, he loves to talk football. So to me, Monday, Jimbo's media availability becomes topics for Wednesday's show. And to go a little bit deeper with him on some things is a delight. Both of them, though, it's life lessons. And that's where I have learned to just keep my mouth shut, let them talk, do not interrupt. And I find that fascinating through both of them. It's really funny. Someone said after my first year, wow, Jimbo and Billy Kennedy are two very different people. And I said, they are. Billy, very laid back. I said, but if you listen closely enough, Billy gives you an awful lot of content. And I really enjoyed talking with Billy because of a shared background with the Spurs and some of the NBA people that we knew. And to me, I really don't want a total hour of basketball. I want to get into, I always call it a peek behind the curtain, just maybe a little bit about family, a little bit about, for getting back to Jimbo, about what it was like to coach under Nick Saban and with a Will Muschamp and with a Derek Dooley and the other guys, and what it was like to be an assistant and what he's learned as a head coach, and then the questions that we get from the fans and Facebook Live, the check-ins there. I find I have jokingly said it's like taking a class. It's like getting to be with them an hour every week is fascinating. I just have to learn to stay out of the way. Because those two are just they are great. Buzz, the word I use with Buzz is fascinating, and Jimbo, there's just that passion. And I'll never forget after the Clemson game, his first year, he walked into Rudy's and it was a standing ovation from Aggie fans. And I was like, okay, we're going to see if he has a sense of humor or not. I leaned over to him. I said, Jimbo, what are they going to do when you win? He just chuckled. There's a genuineness, though. And he said that about Aggie fans, and I think Aggie fans know that about him. I think they know the passion of Buzz Williams and know that, building that culture for basketball. And then as you see that over the course of the season and knowing his players, like my favorite thing about Buzz wasn't on our show, but when he talked about, you must not be able to wait until you get your own players. And he kind of bristled at that and said, these are my players. Sometimes that really comes out the way he talks about his players during the show. I love to see the interaction of Jimbo during the breaks when fans come up. As you know, it usually takes a kid to come up first to kind of break the ice for everybody. But I know, and he stays a little bit afterwards, but my favorite was when he FaceTimed a young lady's family and told her family that she got accepted to Texas A&M. Those types of things, I think it's those genuine moments that I appreciate. I do love talking football, and I love talking basketball, and I love being able to talk about what happened and what's to come. But it's great to interact and learn more about them, the philosophies, like I said, those life lessons that I think they learn. I know I'm interested for the hour. I hope the listeners are as well. But those hours fly. And like I said, I have to make sure I get all the breaks in or I'm in trouble. So that's the time you see those little bridges. Like when we don't go back to the show, I just have to make sure that I get them all in.
What about, did you play baseball? I know you're going to add baseball to your platter next year. What about adding the diamond sport?
I'm looking forward to that. I've always said this, to work with Jimbo, to work with Buzz, and now to add Rob Childress to that. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since I've done baseball, and it's been most of my experience has been on the pro side, on the AA level when I was back in Orlando. And actually, Chuck Knobloch was one of the first players who was there. And what was fascinating was Nobby was the second baseman. Ron Gardenhire was the manager. And they would go at one another time and time again for the Aggies and the Longhorns. But there was so much appreciation by Gardy, who was a middle infielder, and he was the one who clued me in to say, Nobby's not going to be here long. And you could just see the difference, and that was the beauty from that minor league side. And then later on to be involved on the television side for college baseball, normally through the Florida schools, but also some ACC and some SEC. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, to be able to do those three sports at Texas A&M. I know I'm about to get a lot busier, but I am certainly looking forward to it. I really am.
You have to pardon all the commotion here. I think mentioning baseballs, there's baseball size hail we can't see, but there's some hail falling outside here.
You get it there?
Eagle.
It
Yeah.
is loud.
We get Andrew Monaco and we get softball-sized hail, they say out there. So I don't know, man. I mean, you're very powerful to do that.
Should we talk about golf with some it's a smaller size, or should we not talk about any sports with any size involved? Do we?
Tiddlywinks or
let's not talk soccer because you're all in trouble there.
I am interested, Andrew. Listening to you, I want to say I like your enthusiasm. You do a great job. The way I don't get to listen to your football because I'm at the games, but I do listen to basketball. You and John, as I said before, I love listening to you guys. So I wondered when you grew up, who did you like listening to? And I know they didn't necessarily have a way that you do things, but I do believe who you listen to growing up has a big say in how you do things.
It does. You're absolutely right. Thank you for those kind words. I flat out love my partners. I love Dr. John Thornton. I think the world of him. I love Dave Elmendorf. I feel like I've worked with these guys a lot longer than 2 years. It's that comfortable. And we had Will Johnson on football, and we tried to make it, hey, three guys watching a game. Will's mic is constantly live there. It's hot. They're on the sideline. It's like a third guy. He's just in a different spot. But I love Elmo. Sees the game beautifully. I've been fortunate. I'm going to work my way back. I've been fortunate with both the Spurs and the Magic to work with less is more type directors of broadcasting. The game becomes the thing, or you really learn that your partner, especially on TV. But that less is more. You still have to paint the picture. And also, the radio that I've done for them allowed me to do, if I had an idea, it wouldn't matter what it was. You try to exit. I had a boss who always said, hey, try it. If it didn't work, instead of him saying, hey, don't do that any longer, it's, hey, you know what? This might be a better way to execute it. I love being able to get different voices on a broadcast. That's why in a pregame show, you're almost always going to hear the players. You're going to hear – it's not going to be all me. I don't want to talk for 5.5 hours of football. Really don't want to talk for 3 hours on basketball. So, you always want to hear the different voices. For me, growing up in the Philadelphia area, huge Gene Hart fan. He did the Philadelphia Flyers. Harry Callis did the Phillies, radio and TV. So to be able to listen to them paint that picture was huge. Johnny Holiday at Maryland, outstanding. Some of the Washington guys, and then later it was really interesting. We were seniors, and we would string a lot of the Washington games and do that for whether it was AP when UPI was still around and Mutual. One group that did a bunch was KCMO out of Kansas City. Kevin Harlan was doing those games. Well, I got to know then Kevin when I went to the Magic because one team that I really relied on was the Minnesota Timberwolves at the time. They had all come from Boston, where Tom Corelli, who's now the NBA broadcasting director, and that group with Kevin Harlan, with Tom Hanneman, their producers really helped get me started when I was broadcast coordinator with the Magic. So it was neat to catch back up with Kevin and you kind of steal those ideas. And David Steele with the Magic. He had been at Florida. He's an original there with the Magic. He was doing radio. and then transitioned to TV. Just went to the Magic Hall of Fame, and I had a chance. There was like that light bulb moment with him while we were doing baseball, because the Magic had bought the Orlando Twins at the time, and we were doing baseball with Chip Carey, and we would split those games. And I realized that the different rhythms of the sports, football is very different from basketball, which is very different from baseball. That really helped me, being in the booth with him. But for me, Keith Jackson was every Saturday. Vern Lundquist was always someone I liked. A younger Frank Lieber, I always liked. There's a reason why, I look back and say, three-man booth, did Dick Enberg. I don't know if anybody did it better than Dick Enberg did. And there's something about that. Like, it's funny when they pass away and they want to do the highlights. Like, you can get into the oh gollies and the fumbles of Keith Jackson, and you can get into the oh my's of Dick Enberg. But when you watch 3 or 3.5 hours, what gets lost, I've always said this, I want to do every broadcast with the enthusiasm of Frank Broyles. And that relationship that Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles had, that camaraderie, the Dick Enberg, it doesn't matter. It could be Merlin. Bill Walsh wasn't very good, but Dick Enberg made him better. But whether it was Phil Simms and Paul McGuire, you had 3 very different personalities, and it worked. It's hard to come down to just a catchphrase for those guys. To me, it was, can you get along with your partners? And I think that's what I've learned, whether it's radio or TV. In radio, your partner doesn't talk as much as on TV because they're 2 different media. But I can't say anything any better than John Thornton can. I can't say anything better than Dave Elmendorf. What's really interesting is those guys have never stepped on me. I think I've stepped on them more than anything else, but John knows the game better than anyone. The Aggie, obviously he knows Buzz and the relationship with Billy, but he still knows the players. For Dave, I love going to practice. I love to ask him what he's looking at. I think that's important. That camaraderie with a partner becomes so important. It's not about me. Like, it took me a while to learn that, and more on TV. Like, when I first started, I couldn't wait to tell everybody what I knew, and realized I have a partner who makes me look a lot smarter. And that was another one of those light bulb moments for me.
Andrew, what will, in your estimation, football look like this fall with maybe fans in the stands, it's going to be a different season, and we all kind of have our opinions because I know we don't really know yet, but what do you feel like football is going to look like?
Really interested to see what the numbers will be after the summer, and if the virus can survive the summer. And if those numbers go down, I don't know if we'll be at 100% capacity to start. I think we do start, though. It's just my gut. I think it's trending that way. I think we do start on September 5th. I don't think we're at full capacity, but I think we're going to be a lot higher than people think. I wonder if we pivot to the risk being, I want to be at an Aggie game. I want to be at a college football game. I want to go to the soccer game. And this is what it's going to take. And the folks who don't want to, no problem with that. To me, it's as much risk as you want to take. But I think it's going to be I think we're going to be closer to normal, whatever that's going to be. But I think we're going to be at less capacity there. It just seems like both footballs, the college and the NFL, are planning on, we are going with our seasons. For a while there, I thought, wow, they're going to see what baseball and basketball and the NHL are going to do. I think they're going to keep their eye on that, but I think in their plan, again, we still have June and July and August to see where the numbers are going. I think we'll be closer to normal by the time we get to September. Now, that could be the optimist in me. It really could be. I think the broadcasting part, we talked about the ripple effect. The broadcasting part, to not have an NCAA basketball tournament, that's money that you don't get. There's only so many times or ways that a network is going to bail out if they don't have the product. I think that's going to be one step. But I truly believe the NBA and the NHL might be missing the boat by not playing in their own buildings. You can televise from a neutral site with no fans, but now that's just television money. You don't get anything else. And that's an important part when it comes to revenue for all these sports. I think we're going to be a little closer to normal. I don't think we'll be at 100%. And I think there's going to be different I shouldn't say scenarios. There's going to be different precautions that we're going to take, but I'm really, really interested to see what the next month or next 3 months bring when it comes to the numbers and the data for coronavirus.
Have you ever had a game you're going to announce, you didn't happen because of nature or something, or every broadcast that you were scheduled until, the SEC canceled? Is that the first time you had a broadcast canceled?
No, someone was asking me what the closest this situation is for me is 9/11, and I went through 2 NBA lockouts. 9/11 happens, and I had a women's soccer game at UConn. I was going to do that for Sunshine Network in Florida, and the University of Florida was going to play UConn. I regret that I did not get to work with Heather Mitz. I was looking forward to that. I can tell you truly, it's the one time I had no desire to do a broadcast. I just had none after 9/11. And obviously that got canceled. First game back for me after that was end of September. UCF plays at Tulane. We play at the Superdome. It was heavily guarded. And then the week after that, and I was working with Jay Gruden at the time. I'd worked with Charles Davis up until that season. And then it was Jay Gruden. And we did the next week, we were at Virginia Tech, which was powerful. It was their first home game. And you know how they run down the hill, someone carries the flag. It was the brother of someone who was killed in the towers. That was emotional. And I remember Fox came out and they notified all of the broadcasters, we could not make a reference to bomb. You don't throw a bomb. There will be no war analogies. Really interesting. It was a long email that came from David Hill at Fox. The game at the Superdome was different, really different, but it was good. I remember riding on the charter flight thinking, man, if someone wants to hijack this plane, they're nuts, because if they want to try to hijack a bunch of football players, that's, the weird thoughts. The lockout was the 2 lockouts where 9/11, we came back later in September with sports and everything. The lockout, there was always that unknown. So in 99 with the Magic, we ended up playing 50 games that year, 66 for the most recent lockout when I was with the Spurs. So that was a little different. There was no end in sight until you got to that. But I remember going in one day with the Magic and hearing season's done. And then 2 days later, they scrambled. That was the negotiating tactic. The second lockout was going along the same lines. And then all of a sudden there was a twist there. And we thought this season is gone, absolutely gone. And then they worked it out. Then when we heard 66 games, I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? So those would be it. But it would be that September 15th, it would be that women's soccer game at UConn. That was the one, had prepared for that. It was canceled, but it was the one game that I remember saying, nope, my heart just isn't in it. Every other game, I love game night. I love stadiums. I love arenas. That one, my heart just was not in it at that time.
Andrea, here's a question that I've asked everyone that we've had on here, because we're a bunch of storytellers and people who, you and Steve more so than me, have gotten to see and experience all kinds of different athletes, people, personalities, events. What's your favorite story as a broadcaster and or favorite person that you got to interview? Just looking back on your career, when you write your book, your memoir, as the voice of the Aggies, or your career, what's that lead chapter?
Wow. Just one, huh? We're not supposed to have favorites in the business, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a lie. Manu Ginobili might be my favorite athlete. I just think there's an honesty to him. I love the emotion. I love the compete in Manu. Wow. See, so when you do minor league sports, whether it's baseball and whether it was hockey, there's so many of those personalities and the friendships that have stayed with there. I remember I remember a Vin Scully line, and Vin said, "You never have technical difficulties in a blowout." And for 3 days in Nashville, Orlando got blown out. I want to say all 3 games were 10-1. And I was so tempted to just pull the plug. But there was one game, Bill Melvin is pitching, and Bill Melvin proceeds to give up back-to-back-to-back homers. Knowing baseball players the way you guys do, that's not going to be left unpointed out. Chris Johnson, one of my favorites, a pitcher, he said, Billy, he goes, it wasn't, the impressive part was not them hitting 3 straight home runs. He said the impressive part to me was that they could load the fireworks that quickly and shoot them off after each home run. And it's just, you know, you have those types of things. I remember driving to all the games Charles Davis and I drove to, because we came up in the business at the same time. We were learning at the same time. And I treasured those moments. I treasure not being able to get my leg to stop shaking on my first television game. Thank God we shot from the waist up, because I couldn't get the leg to stop shaking. That's how nervous I was. You remember the championships. You remember the Game 7 losses. You remember the LSU 7 overtime. But someone asked me, like, for me, the Travion Williams 73-yard run against Northwestern State was almost that I've arrived moment. But there was also when Kyle is shaking against Clemson, and Dave Elmendorf, who I think got a kick out of seeing the game through my eyes, Kyle shaking, and he's asking me, can you feel it shaking? Those are the kind of things that keep standing out to me. It's those which I believe are totally, you know, personal when it comes to that. My first game as first baseball game, and my play of the game is a pass ball. And in my second game, my play of the game is a sacrifice fly. And I'm thinking, it's got to get better than this, doesn't it? I'm not going to make it throughout this season. And then there is the growth and the partners and the producers and directors of broadcasting. Those, I don't mean to not answer the question. I apologize for that. And probably when we're done, I'll think about that story. But those are the things that hit me. And when I talk about being blessed and really enjoying being it, it's the people and those crews that make it so much fun to sit and realize that I'm in the middle of Madison Square Garden and I've got Sean Elliott to my right and working with him. And it's those types of things. I've never taken this business, my career, for granted. And I've tried to enjoy it. I've always said it, when it becomes work, I quit. It's never been like that. And I've just been, totally fortunate to work with some of the greatest people in our business.
Let's wrap things up a little bit here with Alex Miller, because he has one more special comment that just came in.
All right, Andrew, we've got a question from our buddy Mike Lucas over at KAGS. He says, longtime viewer, first-time commenter. Mike wants to know, how long would y'all last through Jimbo's first conditioning test when the team workouts start back up on June 8th? Depends on what time of the day it is, I guess.
I'm not sure the time of the day matters. This is what makes me chuckle. Last spring, I remember the entire team running onto the field and some of the assistant coaches saying, hey, we're just going to ease our way into it. It's the first day. To some of the freshmen, we're just going to ease our way. By the 4th period, they're yelling. So I'm like, I don't know if I would get through 4 periods. I'm not sure. But as I tell all 3 of you guys, you know the favorite phrase of Jimbo, he would be dropping that on me probably pretty early.
I know last week I had to go shoot the softball senior night for Rudder High School, and to get a shot in center field and then come back before it started, I had to do a little jog, and I was pretty much bent over after that little jog in from center field. So not long is the answer for me. Cease might have the best shot out of all of us.
Cease might have the best shot.
He's out there doing lawn work and walking the dogs. You're probably more in shape than the 3 of us combined.
I'm 67. A lot of people say I look 66, so I feel great.
Cease, do you have anything else for Andrew?
No, I appreciate him taking time with us, and his enthusiasm shows over the air and his intelligence. So that's a great combination.
Listen,
You are kind. Thank you.
one of the best human beings in broadcasting and journalism that I've come across. Thank you, Andrew, for giving us a few minutes of your time and helping us get through this pandemic one Zoom hangout at a time.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
You got it. Thanks, everyone, for joining
Thank
us. If you're watching or watching the replay, we're glad to give you a little bit of entertainment. Stay safe out there. We'll be back next week.